So it being on or about 6:30 on July 12th, 2021, bring this meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission to order. Please note, somebody want to start with the closed captioning too? Just give me 1 second. Please note that in keeping with an act relative to the extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law by Governor Baker on June 16, 2021, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by the commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be recorded and broadcast at a later time on ECAT. Any applicant is able to join the meeting through the link at the top of the agenda, and any public comments, any members of the public who may wish to make a comment can also indicate so in the chat box or by raising their hand and join the meeting as well. Please also note that last meeting, the commission delegated signature authority to the environmental planner, assistant planning director for all decisions issued during the emergency. Also, just as another note, sort of a housekeeping note here, as a reminder, in order to maintain efficiency, each hearing is limited to 15 minutes unless the chair authorizes additional time. After 15 minutes, I will determine if further discussion is required of all the talk, or if all the topics have been sufficiently covered. The applicants, commissioners, and any public contributing comments are asked to remain focused and concise in their presentations and discussions. Commissioners are expected to have reviewed permit materials prior to the hearing to contribute to maintaining an efficient discussion. Additionally, after the applicant's presentation, the chair will request the agent provide a brief summary of the staff reports so the commission is aware of the issues identified by the agent and to help focus the discussion. Also, as a reminder, any materials the commissioner, applicant, or member of the public presents during the public hearing that is not part of the permit records should be provided by email to the principal clerk and agent following the meeting so it can be retained as part of the public record. Now, in order to establish roll call or establish quorum, we're going to identify ourselves through a roll call. Rory Caulfill's present.
Ben Carroll present.
Carol Lundeen present.
Thank you. So having done so, we have established a quorum. And first, a couple of notes. So 314 Center Street, we do not have the DEP number yet, so that will likely be continued. And as noted on the agenda, we expect also that 560 Foundry Street has been requested to be continued by the applicant until our next meeting. And also, please note, Andrea Langhauser is standing in as the agent today. Thank you, Andrea. And I think that's it. Anything else anybody wants before we start? Okay. First up is 10 Gawain Road. This is a request for termination of applicability for installation of an above ground pool and walk around deck.
The Brennans are here, the landowners, and I've promoted them to the panelist status.
Hello, I'm Julie Brennan.
Tom's on mute.
I don't see Jose, your agent.
Is Jose coming?
He's supposed to be joining us.
Okay.
And let me note that as of this morning, we got revised plans that were posted online and a description, a response to the staff meeting, the staff report that you saw in your binder on Friday. So late this afternoon, we sent out a revised staff report to to address the new information.
Yeah, I saw the plans, but I didn't see the, in the narrative, but I did not see the, did not see your staff report yet, so.
Okay, I will,
Same here, Rory.
share my screen. It wasn't, you didn't see it either, Ben?
I didn't see the staff report. I did see the revised plans in the narrative.
That's it, I mean, I
I'll
just pulled
give
it
it a
up.
little bit more, I'll put a little more into it than I usually do. Let me pull it up.
Okay, so, since Jose is not here, let me pull up the plan so we have some sense of what's going on here.
There was a revised binder put in, that was sent out this afternoon, and it's on the revised staff reports on page 4. I can share my screen if you want to read it, but I just as soon go over it myself.
Do you want to do that before we look at the plans, or which would you like prefer to do after?
I'm assuming that, for efficiency's sake, I should probably, if you could show the revised plan, I can speak to it. Jose and the landowners can add to it. This project is presented for a proposed above ground pool that is 24, is a rectangle 12 by 24 with a 2-foot wide wooden walkway around the edge of it that's integrated into the pool walls with aluminum framing. So it sits, it's no additional foundation work. They have moved it in this revised plan. The wetland edge is, I'm going to annotate it. I'm going to try to draw with a nice thick marker. How the wetland edge, the street is at the base of the screen. The septic system is in the front yard, and the wetland edge is right here, she says, drawing. So much for drawing. I'm following a fence line, but at this point here, I go out, I come inside the fence. And the fence line is back here. So this whole section of wetland, it's a forested wetland in back, and this whole section of wetland behind an existing shed is inside the fence line. The house was built in 1979. It had a previous order of conditions to upgrade the septic system, and a certificate of compliance was issued in 2013. At the time of that authorization, an in-ground pool located in the backyard was filled in. We don't have any report of an above-ground pool being constructed after the 2013 certificate was issued, but according to the landowners, there had been one there without authorization. In this revised plan, the pool is the same shape, but it is pushed up against an existing deck. Did I say the house was built in 1979? So the buffer zone, the inner 50-foot buffer zone, it cuts through the house and includes the whole deck area and part of the garage. So all of that is our inner 50-foot buffer zone. Commission is more than aware that new projects, we keep the inner 50-foot as a no disturb zone, but since this property is clearly disturbed prior to the local wetland regs going into effect in 1986, the standard for the inner 50-foot buffer zone is to mitigate and compensate to the best of the applicant's ability. Those words you recognize in the waiver standards, but there is no need for a public interest standard to be met. So in speaking with the agent today, and having read, and him having read my staff report, they modified the location to get it, again, as far from the wetland as they could. They are putting in a splash guard around the perimeter of the pool. He described it in his mitigation. He goes through the explanation that it's most needed in the areas where it is soft, and so there'll be no pooling. The water will infiltrate well. They have always proposed a saltwater filter, which is definitely preferred. And they are off the more steep grade. It's not a very steep grade, but for the size of the pool it is, there is a grade there, so they push it over to the side. There should be limited grading needed. The agent speaks of a silt sock being constructed at the limit of work. He'll need at least the width of an excavator to go around the pool area, and they expect to use the material on site. I don't have an estimate of the amount, but they expect to use it on the site and grade it in. At the time, he was saying grade it into the foundation. So no closer. So we don't have a limit of work set on the plan, but certainly the acknowledgement of erosion controls needed. This is a request for determination of applicability. I should say that to address the standard that those are the ways to mitigate the pool, and similar to the way you often mitigate a pool. I also spoke to the agent about the Conservation Commission usually having a condition that says no discharge of water into the wetland should the pool collapse, and there be any impact. It would be on the landowners to repair with proper permitting, of course, ahead of time. In compensation, the memo speaks of, but didn't confirm, the possibility of additional native plantings and along the back fence line, relocating the perimeter fence to the landward side of the wetland, which the commission in the past has often said when you are going to, when the fence needs to be relocated, put it outside the wetland line. That's the best way to protect the wetland. The further mitigation was roof drainage, most prominently on the drain closest to the shed line, which, and the applicant can speak to this. In here, along this fence line, I did see a little bit of erosion along the slope. It could have just been, shade and, a pathway created across the in and out of the fence, or it could have been erosion from the roof drain. So they did offer to, what they offered to do was to install an extension on the end of the drain so that it went down the slope through the pipe and then went out. I know you often ask to have drains, roof gutters, the drains off of roof gutters put into some kind of infiltration, even dry well. So that compensation, here are, on this plan, they show a series of 8 hemlocks. I'm sure Carol can speak to the fact that hemlocks, while native, are suffering from more than one pest. So it doesn't have the staying power that it did when we were kids. But the concept of a large shrub turning into a tree is a great one, and it certainly will protect that edge of the wetland if the applicants agree to it. So personally, it's your decision as to whether you can condition an RDA as extensively as we spoke of. And would love to hear from the applicant, the landowners, about the native plantings and the fence relocation. Personally, professionally, I have to say that an RDA is not enforceable. The conditions on an RDA are, it's a gentleman's agreement, it's trust, both parties trust that things will go forward. If an RDA conditions are not met, then what you can do is stop work and request a notice of intent. The RDA purpose is, does this property need a notice of intent or doesn't it? And that's your enforcement mechanism as well. But my conversations with the applicant and others, were to condition this the way you would normally condition it. So even the old decision had pretty much the same conditions, but the new binder has all the conditions written out in the staff report.
Thank you. So I think that from my standpoint, I think the next step here would be to hear from the applicants about their the mitigation measures here and their thoughts about the plantings, if they have a different idea than using hemlocks, or if that is something that we would be a little bit cautious about. So I don't know if you guys want to add anything to what Andrea said.
I mean, we've discussed about putting more of a shrub or a bush as opposed to a tree, which it would help enhance the look of the yard in general anyway. So I mean, we really have no problem with that. Finding something that belongs in this area. As far as what exactly that would be, I don't know what other native shrubs would be used in a situation like this to border a wetland.
Okay, so we'll circle back to that. I know that Andrea probably has some suggestions, and maybe Commissioner Lundin as well. I sort of leave those to those two individuals. They have better recommendations than I will always default to the high bush blueberry, but that's only me. So I know there may be other better choices depending on the situations. So I think that the other things I think we need to hear from you is in agreement to abide by the conditions that were proposed, maybe some greater detail about any sort of mitigation related to the drainage or the roof drainage. I think that.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. So I think that as Andrea sort of indicated to us, that redirecting the water without sort of infiltrating it into the ground, into some sort of dry well situation, is probably, whether or not it's beneficial or not is, it may help with a little bit of erosion on your property, but that's, I don't know that it's actually better or worse for the wetlands and whatnot. If you were to sort of, run it off into an area that's, crushed stone or something like that, where it has a chance to slow the water down and have a chance to infiltrate into the ground sooner than hitting the wetlands. I mean, as you know, in your backyard, we talked about this on Saturday, it's pretty hard packed, and that water runs pretty quickly, I'm sure, when it's raining out. So
yeah, that actually the primary discharge there is not from the roof, but from the sump pump.
Right.
Which is why it comes out with such force as opposed to off of the roof. And my intent was always to not have that erode away as it kept discharging. It was to do a runoff with crushed stone to help dissipate it before it got down to where the shed is.
Right. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that typically is done, and maybe with your pool guy on site, he could certainly dig a hole and bury a container and surround it with crushed stone and have it discharge directly into that. It may give you enough volume to deal with whatever runoff you're getting out of your sump pump. I know that's sort of a common mechanism of just a quick and dirty, French drain style of using the infiltration there without putting in an actual infiltrator box or anything
Right.
like that. So I would try to avoid in such a small situation, having to put in such a substantial stormwater system. Any other thoughts from you guys before I go around to the commission, and we can?
I mean, we in talking with Jose, after his conversation with Andrew and whatnot, I mean, as far as the compensation or mitigation goes, I mean, we're more than willing to accommodate. We talked to him about doing the 2x2 drain around, trench around it, as far as the water splash and whatnot. So, I mean, I don't. There isn't much more we can say unless there's.
Sure.
So
I think that this is one of those cases where we're right on the edge of being able to issue a negative RDA, and it would have to put in some pretty strong conditions in order to do so. And whether or not we would, if we issued a positive RDA, that meant you'd have to file a notice of intent. Now, as Andrea indicated to me, to you, to the public, and to the meeting here, that our enforcement on this is essentially, if you don't abide by the conditions of the situation, we can come in and stop the project.
Mhm.
And at that point, we would require you to file a notice of intent. If you failed to do that, then we go to an enforcement action, which we could start issuing fines. So, I mean, that isn't what I want to do. I'm only telling you that your agreement and adherence to the conditions that we put forth here, which are probably more substantial than we normally indicate in an RDA, would be essential to your going forward with this project.
Mhm.
Because we do have a mechanism for dealing with it. We prefer not to go that way from that particular standpoint. So my own thought process on this is with a pool in a backyard that's previously disturbed, and we're talking about 40 some odd years of disturbance in this backyard. The slope is a little bit of an issue here. It's a couple foot slope over the course of 12 feet. So, so there is some sort of slope there. I like the fact that we're going to regrade higher than the where the pool is, as opposed to lower. Anything closer to the wetland is probably not something we want to deal with. Erosion control. Now, I do want to say that you and I, Julie and Tom, we had an extensive conversation on Saturday. I know you're earnest about this. You were very interested in hearing about what might be required regarding this, and this was even before I had a chance to talk to Andrea, and I think you got probably a pretty similar story from me as you did from Andrea, and she gave more details to Jose today. I have faith that you will move forward in the manner that's consistently making no impact on the wetlands, which is what our goal here would be. And so from my own standpoint, I think I'm in favor of moving forward with a negative RDA with conditions. But I will let other commissioners speak as well.
Thank you, Rory.
Carol or Ben?
Yeah, I certainly agree with Rory. I think this applicant's tried really hard to position this pool in a thoughtful way. I would just like to make a comment. I think requiring any movement of the fence would just be further disturbing the wetland area. And if the commission doesn't think that the runoff from the roof is having an impact on the wetland and it's more of an erosion issue from a landscaping stance, I wouldn't even be too keen on requiring additional drainage there. And that I would be interested in hearing from other commissioners too as to the value of planting native plants on the landscape side of the fence where it's previously disturbed. Just the cost benefit of that impact versus having the plants there.
Commissioner Lundin?
Sure, thank you. Ben, say again what you were saying about the cost benefit of what?
Yeah, so my question is, where we have some slope towards the wetland, is, and this is genuinely a question, is excavating the area to plant additional native species, does that really have a net positive impact on the wetland resource that's behind the fence?
Right, that's a good question. And I'm not a wetland scientist, and I'm not qualified to answer that question.
I'll come back to it when, after you give your comments, Carol.
Sure. Yeah, as far as plant selection, I think, if we want to go that direction, I think trees rather than shrubs are by far more high functioning. They give us a lot more value for the land that they occupy than shrubs. I'm familiar with the kind of habitat needs of butterflies and moths as far as our native local wildlife. For them, I could recommend oaks, willows, and black cherry trees would be the highest on my list. But I've not done a site visit here. I don't know what the site conditions are as far as sun, shade, moisture, all that. So
I can let you know.
Say again?
I can give you that information. It's a very shady area by the fence. It's more moist than dry.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
That helps. So,
Yeah, the fence line there, because of the surrounding trees already existing, the fence line does not get a lot of sun. It's very low sun there. The sun is more forward. If you look on the drawing, where basically where it says lawn, where we're looking to put the pool in that area, that's where the low sun is. But closer to the fence is typically moist and low sun.
good, thank you. I'll have to.
Just as a point of information, we have exceeded our 15 minutes, and I do authorize this exceeding it. I think we'll come to a conclusion on it hopefully tonight. So go ahead, Carol. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, thank you, no problem. I am concerned, I think maybe more than you, Ben, about the runoff from the shed. Whatever debris, material, sediment is in that will continue to flow downhill over time, and that will go right into the buffer, a 50-foot line, without much time or rain at all. And when sediment accumulates over time, the wetland, the buffer becomes less able to do the buffering that we count on it doing. So I would want to look at other solutions, like maybe putting in a French drain with a perforated pipe and gravel that help slow the water down and go in an opposite direction. Number 3, I agree with Rory and Ben about the, wanting to lean towards an RDA. My one hesitation is that the commission is in a position, the town's in a position where we have a new agent coming on board, and depending on a new agent to get onboarded and up to speed and keeping up with all the, doing all these site visits as a follow-up after a RDA, I don't necessarily think that's a reasonable expectation to do that in a timely way.
So just as a point of information, that the new agent is a very experienced agent, used to working in a busy conservation office. So I'm not as concerned about that particular issue. Also, given that this area of town tends to have its share of permits requests, I'm more than happy to make a site visit every couple months as well to ensure that the applicant is is following our guidance on the condition. So I agree that would be a concern, but I think that's something that we could probably work our way through, and I'm confident that the oncoming agent will be able to handle it, given that, to be honest, she'll be in this part of the town probably every other week already. So
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. I guess the other thing I would say is, I mean, I appreciate that the previous disturbance, but being so close to the 50, well, in any case, I try not to assume that the applicant will or will not follow the terms of a permit or determination. And I'm feeling right now like erring on the side of more protection, which would lean us towards a NOI.
okay, Andrea, there were a couple questions there. Do you want to try and respond to them?
Sure. Ben, I agree that moving a fence that is in good shape is more disturbance as necessary. It's more of a future condition you would put on a notice of intent that has a 3-year construction term. The purpose of native planting along the exact wetland boundary is because the trees, shrubs have a deeper root system, and therefore they're going to pick up more nutrients and hold more water. They also aren't generally, perennial plants are often not fertilized as often as a lawn might be. And the third reason is it's wildlife benefit. So it's flood control, prevention of pollution, wildlife habitat, all reasons for all wetland values right up against the wetland line. So when I worked in Falmouth, we used to use bramble rose and multiflora, even though we knew they were invasive, because it was a thorny thicket and nobody went past it. And so that shows you how old I am. But the idea of trees versus shrubs, it's a forested wetland right behind the fence line. So there's a very good tree canopy. There's only 8 shrubs being proposed. If you wanted to do 1 or 2 of the willow, oak, they would certainly grow in this area. But native shrubs, I think, function the way we need them to. And I would always use more than 1 species. So the high bush blueberry plus a clethra or a, and again, we can leave that to the agent. She is quite adept. The mitigation plan that was submitted today has a hyperlink has 2 hyperlinks for native plants. Both are very good, responsible sources. And you have a couple really good nurseries in the area, one right over the Norton line that has an extremely good website, the Blue View Nursery, where you can identify the type of situation you have: wet, shady, native plant, deer resistant, and you'll get a nice list of what's available in stock.
So from my perspective on that is that, I think we could either specify the number of trees and number of bushes and allow them to sort of pick what they would like to put there. This is a mitigation, so I'd like them to have some input on what they'd like to put in their yard. They probably haven't had as big a chance to review that list, because this has all really happened in the last 24 hours for them. So I think that leaving some leeway to them, and if we want to specify a minimum of 1 tree, or 2 trees or something like that, plus the remainder of this, maybe it's 1 tree and 6 bushes, or 2 trees and 4 bushes, that as an alternative to the thing. Or if we want to give them the option of running 8 bushes, then we can do that as well. I just want to, I personally would like them to use a native a native tree or a native bush in the area, allow them to pick it because maybe, you know, there's a favorite color in the family that makes a difference of a flowering bush or something along those lines. You know, I think that I'd like to give them that leeway. So I mean, that's my perspective if we're to go down that road. So is there discussion here about giving them alternatives on what mix to have here, or do we, you know, is there thought?
Honestly, I don't have a strong opinion. I agree with the concept of giving them the ability to at least choose the native plants they're going to use, and would like to see a combination of shrubs and trees.
Yeah, this is Carol. When I look at the size of the pool, 12 by, I can't really read it. Is it 24?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if we kind of estimate that 24 feet is about, you know, that much of my thumb, and we measure the length of the fence line and how many, you know, what's the spacing between any potential trees or shrubs.
Yeah, I personally don't want to get into. I think that it's going to be there. I mean, if you just tell me what the number is, what the correct number is, I mean, we're probably talking about, I'd say, it looks to me to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 linear feet. And so I don't want to get into the details of, you know, no closer than 6 feet or no closer than 10 feet or something like that. And I know you're trying to come up with what the number is. You know, is it 2 trees and 4 bushes, or is it, you know, 2 trees and 6 bushes? You know, that's,
Yeah.
But I also don't want to spend the next 20 minutes sort of figuring that out. So if you have a sort of off the top of your head type of answer, I'll accept it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is if it's 100, 120 feet, 6 bushes is not going to cut it. I'm looking for more than that. And I was thinking, myself, I was thinking, you know, some kind of mix, maybe 1/3 trees and 2/3 shrubs, 2/3 shrubs, or the opposite of that. So Ben, you were saying, I think 2 trees. I'd like to suggest either 3 or 5 for good looks.
Odd numbers.
That's right. It's a design thing.
Oh, it's a design thing, of course. I'm quite aware of that.
Mm-hmm. You
We
can.
I'm a math guy, so
Restoration plan.
What, Andrea?
You can ask for a buffer zone planting plan to be submitted within the next 30 days to be, you know, prepared by a qualified landscaper or, you know, or I think a qualified landscaper in this case, to be, you know, reviewed and approved by the agent.
So do we want to give the applicant some sense of the number of plants that we're looking for here?
I mean,
Do you want to increase it to 12? Go ahead, Ben.
I was okay with 6. I'm okay with increasing it to 12. I think just giving them some design review, as long as they're planting native plants back there, is important to me. I'm not dead set on a mix between trees and shrubs. I'd be okay with saying, you know, 10 plants total. They're choosing native plants.
I'm okay with that as well, to be honest.
Okay, I can live with that.
I can certainly live with it, but you want to say woody plants, right? You don't want them to put in 12 wildflowers.
Correct. Woody plants.
Very good. Any other comments from the commission before I go to public comment on this?
Julie has her hand raised. I'm not sure if that's intentional.
Oh, I didn't see it. She's got a yellow wall behind her. Go ahead, Julie.
I just have a question on the plantings. What's the timeline? How much time do we have to purchase these 10 plants or trees?
So typically the plantings, we'd want to do them in the fall, because you don't want to do them now because it takes too much water to keep them, you know, surviving. So so it'd be something that we would want to see in the fall, typically in the fall. If not, then you're gonna wait all the way to the spring.
All right, thank you.
So, any other questions from the commission? Anything from the applicants? Anything you've heard that you've got questions about or concerns? Are you okay moving forward with the way you've presented it to you?
I have one thing to throw out there, Rory. Because this did move really fast and things that we had to figure out with placement of the pool where we spoke to you on Saturday. Tom worked to 24 yesterday, but while he was gone, our pool salesman, Jeff, came out and spent 2 hours in our backyard with me, and we measured, and he came up with the 2 different locations. And then Tom had come up with his own on Saturday, which I didn't know, or we couldn't understand it over the phone. So then this afternoon he showed it to me. So I'm just wondering, is what's put on here with these 2 drawings of where we're saying the pool is if we get a negative determination and we're able to move forward with the install of the pool, is that what we definitely have to do?
So I think that one of the things that will probably be conditioned is the location of the pool would be no closer to the wetlands than is depicted on the plan. So if you told me that you wanted to move it, even if we gave you a foot or 2 in another direction, maybe we could do that. But I wouldn't want to see it move substantially from where it's depicted here, only because that's the grounds upon which we would be voting for. And it's not that I'm opposed to a different location. It's just that I don't have enough information to be able to give you that leeway to do so. And that's my opinion on this. I mean, if we were to vote on a request for determination tonight and issue a negative determination with conditions, it would be based upon this pool location or further away from the wetlands. I mean, I think that's probably the only way we could go about it, which means that if you were to move the pool closer to the house, that would be okay. If you moved it closer to the fence, that would not be okay.
So can I ask a question? If it's moved in a way that the 8-foot deck, but not the pool itself, is moved closer to the wetlands, does that matter where the deck's going to be up high? Do you understand what I'm saying? As far as dimension wise? Because Tom seemed like he had a good place. I just didn't understand it until this afternoon. And it moves it off of the hill. So it kind of takes away that issue. I guess it seems like it preserves the yard and helps the conservation area, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know where that location is.
Okay.
Do you have a sense of what? Does anybody else understand?
No, we don't. I don't know the third alternative. I just wanted to speak to the superstructure versus the pool itself.
Mm-hmm.
The performance standard is anything that reduces the pervious cover. So, we don't have any details on the type of decking it is. We don't know if it's pervious or not. So I would say the closest distance is 32 feet from the wetland, and it includes the decking.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me just, any public comment for 10 Gawain Road? Raise your hand or put something in the chat. We've got all applicants in there other than HH. Okay, so seeing no public comment, any further comment from the commission?
Nope.
From me.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to issue a negative determination of applicability for 10 Gawain Road with conditions. As noted in the staff report. Let me just Okay, so let me just put them here. So I mean, there's some items noted in number 6, and then also in the recommendations. So I don't know if I should probably just to say, I'll try and read them off here. And if I miss anything, Andrea, just make sure to correct me before we get a second on the motion. So the location of the pool will be no closer to the wetlands than is depicted on the plan. There shall be a splash guard of a stone trench around the pool, 2 foot in width, 2 feet deep. Saltwater filter shall be used, no discharge of water into the wetland at any time. Silt sock shall be used, 8-inch silt sock should be used as a limit of work, be established prior to any disturbance. Shall be mitigation plantings along the fence line, up to 10 plants of native woody plants in total of the homeowners choosing. They shall submit a planting plan to the agent within 45 days. And I think the only other thing is dealing with the sump drainage. So I think that the sump should be discharged into some sort of gravel basin to slow down the velocity and volume of the water before it reaches the wetland. Andrea, did I miss anything?
All disturbed areas shall be loamed and seeded within 30 days of installation.
All disturbed areas shall be loamed and seeded within 30 days. Okay.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Lundin, aye.
Okay.
Pardon, Mr. Chairman, who seconded your motion?
Ben Carroll, second motion.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's it. We're all set.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
working
everyone.
through this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the commission.
Thank you. So just one, so the next item up is 48 Oldfield Drive, but I'm actually going to take one item out of order prior to doing this permit, because there's actually an open permit on this site already, and I actually don't technically want 2 permits open at the same time. So I want to close the other permit before we start the new one. So I'm going to take a 48 Oldfield Drive request for certificate of compliance Easton number 1529 first.
I'm promoting Peter Lyons from Collins Engineering.
Excellent.
Did you call him Pierre?
Yeah, we're going to call him Pierre from now on. That's it. Then the next meeting we'll call him Pedro, and then we'll call him something else. So. Okay, so Peter, 48 Oldfield Drive, we issued a permit on this in 2019. I actually have the plan available. I can share it to the applicants, which I was going to do, or to the commission, because I was actually going to do that anyway. And this is that is the original plan here. You can see this was the dwelling. This is a pool. This is quite a steep, you can see the slope here, the location of the plan here. So this project was never started. So so the motion here is to close this permit as the project was never started. So I don't think we need to have any further discussion about this.
Second.
Well, hang on a sec. Any public comment on 48 Oakfield Drive? I appreciate that you trying to move it along, Ben. Any public comment on 48 Oakfield Drive? Seeing none, make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 48 Oakfield Drive, Easton number 1529.
Lundin, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Thorough I.
Lundin, aye.
Okay, so now that housekeeping is out of order, or is taken care of, we'll call 48 Oakfield Drive. This is a request for determination of applicability for a septic upgrade. And Peter, I will let you take control of the site.
All right. Can we see my plan up on the screen?
We can, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll start with just a kind of quick recap of the history of this project. A couple of years ago.
Just 1 second, Peter. Go ahead, Carol.
Thank you. Peter, I'm not sure that you've introduced yourself.
Sure. Okay. For the record, I'm Peter Lyons with Collins Civil Engineering, representing the property owner, Mr. William Humphrey, for this project for a new residential dwelling and associated septic system. Basically, as just mentioned, we had a pretty significant project approved a couple of years ago that we were going to be building a house, on this heavily sloped area, kind of encroaching in the resources. And since then, that project has been scratched. There's a new owner, and we were able to come up with a little tighter of a layout. So we're able to keep the house up a lot closer to the road on flat ground and site the septic system to the north of the house. This is overall just a much better layout from a conservation separation perspective, as well as a constructability. They're not really going to be dealing with the extreme slopes during construction out there. So a quick overview of the property. This is at the end of Oldfield Drive, right in the cul-de-sac. It's a currently wooded lot that slopes down to a BVW, a floodplain, and a riverfront area to the west. Bunch of colored lines on the plan, but we basically have our dark blue line is the 200 foot to the riverfront. That's the 200-foot outer riparian limit. And then the light blue lines are the limit of bordering land subject to flooding, and then the 100-foot buffer to the bordering land subject to flooding. So basically everything is outside of it with the exception of some grading that will be happening just to give them a little bit of a level backyard. We've established an erosion control around the entire project, which stays outside of the 100-foot BVW buffer. The area to the south is as close as we get. We've additionally proposed conservation posts along what's basically going to be the proposed tree line along the slope. So we have a total of 7 posts along the work limit to the south, and then we'll be putting some outside. The immediate intent isn't to clear beyond the limit of work, but the conservation post will act to kind of designate the limits of the resource areas and the buffer zones in the future. What else with this one? That's pretty much my overview. I'm sure we'll have some questions on this one. I guess I can take them at this time.
So I think that, so Andrea, you want to give us anything we need to watch out for here?
Just a quick statement that stream is a perennial stream. You are in the Canoe River ACEC, and you're in a zone of contribution to our public water supply. So the slope was the immediate issue, but the quality of the area is rather significant. Other than that, the project has changed in so dramatically in the Conservation Commission that I don't want to say anymore for fear of, jinxing it.
So, just one thing to note is that on this project and the last one, the butter notifications were received, so I just
Thank
wanted to.
I meant to say that.
Note that for the record here. My own comments here is that, my understanding of the plan is that there's actually gonna be no disturbance, actual construction, I shouldn't say that, construction of facilities or, house, inside any sort of buffer zone here. It's all outside of the buffer zone. The limit of work, is the only thing that is, within the buffer zone here. It's only a few feet into the buffer zone as well. Even the regrading that you were talking about is actually outside of our jurisdictional area from what I can see on the plans. So, from that perspective, as Andrea has said here, this is Peter, as you described, this is a much tighter plan than what was originally proposed. We spent a lot of time on that other plan, and it was a much more ambitious project. So this one seems to make a little bit more sense for this site. So I have no further questions. Ben?
Could you just detail a little bit what the erosion control plan is?
Yeah, sure.
It's over in the corner by the just underneath the locust.
There it is, okay. Yeah, so it's kind of difficult to see, but if we start at the south, the gray dash line that parallels the property line, and then it basically cuts up to the north around everything and ties back in with the property line. That is our erosion control / limit of work, which is shown as a 12-inch silt sock staked every 6 feet. Usually we use a little smaller one, but with the slope out here, we upgraded to a 12-inch. That's, I guess, that's the basics of it. I mean, we got some notes that erosion controls to be installed, prior to any work and remain in place until the site's stable. Yeah, I guess if you have a specific question about that, unless that covers it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Carol?
Will you talk a little more, Pierre, about after the final grading is done? You talked about wanting the lawn to be a little bit flatter or flattish. What kind of slope does that leave?
The existing slope out there is on average a 3 to 1 coming up the hill, and it's very significant. It is vegetated. I don't know. It's really you can't really grow. Well, I'm not gonna say you can't grow grass well, but I don't know if the client's intent is to really take over the hill. We obviously have to clear the trees, within 20, 30 feet of the house and the septic field at a minimum. So that's the only reason we've kind of pushed out the backyard a little bit further to the south. And then we don't have any intentions of really going much into the slope to the west of where the leaching field is proposed.
Right. So how will that get stabilized?
The area within the erosion control is all to be loam and seeded.
And what about, fellow commissioners, the use of a blanket, a seed blanket on that area to help contain soil from running down to the steeper part of the slope?
I'm not opposed to it. I'm just, this is outside of our jurisdiction, so that's my only concern. So do we?
The 8-inch compacted silt sock has a design life of a year, and the construction of the house is gonna be done within that period of time.
It's a 12-inch too, so isn't it?
12 inches, is design life higher than a year, or is it 3 years, Peter?
I don't have that answer. I would imagine it would be at least equal to or more than the 8-inch.
Right,
So I think being outside my jurisdiction, I'd be more concerned about jurisdictional issues. You know,
Is there not a thing about if something is outside an area of jurisdiction, if it would impact the area of jurisdiction, then there is jurisdiction?
you're approving a limit of work here. And so the limit of work extends out of the jurisdiction, but you're approving the limit of work outside your jurisdiction. What happens after that is where Rory's right to show some concern.
I'm confident in the limit of work in the 12-inch silk socket. That's mine.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anything else from the commission? Any public comment from for 848 Oldfield? Seeing none. Sorry. Okay, so make a motion to issue a negative request for termination for 48 Oldfield, noting 12-inch silt sock is erosion control along with limit of work, and all disturbed areas must be loamed and seeded within 30 days of requesting any certificate of occupancy. Street sweeping will be performed at the end of each workday, and a stone pad will be constructed at the construction entrance. And it might as well as the commission requires adherence to the sustainable lawn practices.
Second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Lundin, aye.
Okay. Thank you. Peter, I think we have one and then we come back to you. So.
Sure.
That one has a few issues. You could get rid of his 3 in about 10 minutes.
Okay, let's keep Peter here then. We're going to take 52 Turnpike, 9 Dogwood, and 46 Depot out of order before 863 Washington. So next up here is 52 Turnpike Street, which is a request for, hang on a second. So 314 Center, I'm skipping over the ones here. So 314 Center Street, we don't have a DEP number. I don't, you're not on mute there. So the applicant's not here for 86 or for 314, but we don't have a DEP number. So we still don't have a DEP number. So we're going to have to continue 314 Center Street to our next meeting on August 2nd. Make a motion to continue 314 Center to August 2nd.
Lundin, the second.
Caulfield's, roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Lundin, aye.
Okay, so thank you, 3-0. On 560 Foundry Street, the applicant has requested a continuance to August 2nd. So I make a motion to continue to August 2nd.
Second.
That was a Carol on the second. Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Lundin, aye.
Okay, so now we're going to take 52 Turnpike, 9 Dogwood, and 46 Depot out of order So 52 Turnpike Street, this is a request for certificate of compliance, Easton, number 1663.
Before you start, Peter, I just want the commission to know that Bill Humphreys, was the applicant for the RDA, wanted to come into the meeting, had difficulty getting in, and appreciates your vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, we missed you, Bill. So, thank you. I would have enjoyed that. So 52 Turnpike, Peter?
Yeah, I'll try to be short and sweet with these ones. This is for a certificate of compliance relative to a septic repair that was just recently completed. This is a rather large pump system with a retaining wall around the back, 25 feet off the wetlands. I haven't received any reports from Andrea, but to my knowledge, the site is stable and the posts are in place. So I guess if anyone has any comments on this or questions.
The decisions were issued in February of 2021, and I viewed the site on Tuesday, and it conformed to my observations as well. I've been really good about posting on Friday afternoons, Peter.
Okay.
But that's old news. The only perpetual condition was no dumping in the wetlands, and it was number 37.
Any questions about 52 Turnpike? Okay, so I make a motion. Oh, any public comment on 52 Turnpike?
Generally don't get comment on certificates of compliance because there's no abutter notification.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion? I make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 52 Turnpike Street, noting perpetual condition, no dumping in the wetlands.
Second.
Roll call vote. Oh, that was Carol on the second.
Yes.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Blondine, aye.
Next up is 9 Dogwood Lane.
That would be me again. Do you guys have anything to say, or you want me to just give you a quick rundown again?
This is the 45-second rundown.
9 Dogwood Lane, this was a septic system completed in mid-January of this year. It's a relatively simple project. We had a septic system installed in the front yard, right about at the 100-foot buffer zone line. The septic resulted in no change in grade, and it was an existing lawn and is vegetated again at this point. So the site is stable. The 5 erosion control posts are located on site as shown on the submitted as-built plan. So we feel this site is in compliance.
My inspection found the same thing, and the only perpetual condition is number 37, no dumping in the wetlands. Which actually, there's a few old Christmas trees out by the wetlands right now.
Okay, I make a motion to issue certificate of compliance to 9 Dogwood Lane.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Blondine, aye.
Okay. Next up is 46 Depot Street. Another one for you.
All right. This is another septic system repair. This was completed late March of this year, as built submitted March 30th. This is another pretty straightforward gravity septic system. No change in grade. The system was built in an existing lawn area, which has been reestablished and revegetated. 4 conservation posts installed along the tree line, as shown on our as-built submitted. Revised June 15th to show the conservation post locations, updated on the plan. So this one, again, is in compliance in our opinion, unless Andrea has anything else to say.
My site inspection on Tuesday showed my observations conformed to the site plan, and everything is stabilized. The special condition that's perpetual, no dumping in the wetlands, is number 36. The permanent markers will be very useful here to remind people that there's a wetland back there.
Any comments from the commission? Seeing none, make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 46 Depot Street, noting perpetual condition number 36, no dumping in the wetlands.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Blondine, aye.
Okay. Peter, that's it for you.
All right, thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Okay, so next up is 863 Washington Street. This is a request for certificate of compliance. Easton number 1610. This is a septic repair.
I'll do the presentation, but we have both the current owner and the proposed owner, both being promoted as panelists in case they want to speak.
Okay.
This is a septic system that was approved in May of 2020 relative to the simplified septic repair. The wetland is in the back of the property and along the side. This is not an ACEC, it's a bordering vegetated wetland. Along the side of the property, there's a very good chance that it's being fed by road runoff. The concern here, everything is done according to the as-built plan. And the wetland markers were installed in the form of a PVC pipe with the Easton marker on it. Grass stabilizes most of the area, but in the front of the site, there was pavement that was pulled up in order to put the septic leaching field underneath a carport, and they left chunks of the bituminous pavement pushed up against the straw wattle, and it's there's no loam, and it's not growing anything. So I was a little concerned that it's both unclean fill and it's not stabilized. The straw wattle is going to is at the base of this slope, a tiny slope, but it's at the base of it, and it's in, I don't know how long it's going to stay in place before it goes into the wetlands, very close to the wetland. So I spoke to Sandra, who is here today and is the owner, person who wants to buy the property. So I was recommending that the disturbed area isn't fully stabilized yet.
Yeah, so you know, I was out to site, you know, observed the same thing Andrea did, you know, had the same concern about, you know, that area is much higher than is actually, I think it's actually higher than what's depicted on the as-built. It does really not slope off to where that is. It really sort of, it goes and then goes like this right off with the thing. And it's really not graded at all. It's just pushed off. Yeah, it's a rough edge pushed off. There's, as she says, there's asphalt in the materials, which is not going to be conducive to any sort of vegetation growing. You know, my recommendation is to have them pull that back and slope it as designed, and have it, you know, have proper material there to, you know, enhance the vegetation growing. So I'm not against issuing a partial here. but I don't know if that will keep the applicant on track here to get the work done. So, any thoughts from anybody?
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, how are you?
Can you just identify yourself,
Sure.
the name and address for the record?
And it's 863 Washington Street. Yeah, the owner of the house passed away, and Matt, who's also on the other line with me, we're kind of left with figuring all this out. So we're going to do whatever it takes to do the right thing over there. So we will take your recommendations. We've been trying to reach the contractors, Bob Wilson and his wife Joanne. They have not been answering their phone calls. But if they aren't going to do it, we'll figure out a way and do exactly what you would suggested, Andrea and Rory, to pull up that extra dirt, slope it down, and reloom and seed and pull up all that extra driveway that they left behind.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I appreciate that. And Matt, I appreciate you both attending tonight to give us your feedback. Andrea, do you have a recommendation either to deny the certificate or issue a partial?
The third option is to continue to August 2nd.
Well, that's also, see, that's why we have you here.
The problem with
Filing fee if you deny and restart, there's also a filing fee if you issue partial.
So Sandra, you were about to give us a concern about to continue into August 2nd.
Yeah, the sale of the house is supposed to take place on July 30th. Will that at all stand in the way? I mean, I'd be willing to take liability for it.
So I think that your attorney would have to tell you on that. So that the buyer's attorney would probably ask you to put money into escrow while the certificate of compliance is open.
Okay.
And that basically is to cover them, that if you walked away from it, they would have to go out and contract to do the work to get the certificate of compliance.
Okay.
I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice.
Right,
I'm only
exactly.
giving you what I've seen in my experience happen here is usually money gets put into escrow. They can only be released once the certificate of compliance is issued. And that obviously only holds you accountable to do so. So normally these type of things, it's not the first closing that's ever happened without a certificate of compliance.
Okay.
So your attorney would have, it's really up to the buyer to sort of give you the condition under which they would close without certificate of compliance. There's usually a way to escrow enough money to make that happen.
Okay. Well, actually, I am the one that's going to be buying the house.
Yep.
I don't know if there was some confusion on that. So both Matt and I have agreed that we'll take care of this, whatever it takes. We just didn't want it to stand in the way of selling the house.
Yeah, this is Matt Churchill, the brother of Robert Churchill.
Yep.
He's the owner of the property, and I am the personal representative since his passing in January. So, Sandra's correct. I just want to underline what she's saying. We kind of came into this whole construction without being in it from the very beginning. My brother started the process. He became sick in September and was pretty much incapacitated until he passed in January. So, we were trying to get the job done with the contractors, and there was some issue that the engineer had mentioned that the back of the property wasn't properly seeded. So we did have the contractor come back. They did reseed the back, and I think that's been approved. So we really want to make it compliant with whatever the expectations of the Conservation Commission are, and get it done right.
Yeah, so I think that certainly had this been graded properly with proper material, even if there had to be some additional seeding being done, we probably would have issued a certificate of compliance here. It would have been substantially in compliance. The way it is right now, I think there's just a lot of concern about that particular area in the front. The back, I think, looks fine. The front though is a little bit more concerning, and you know, I had a brief conversation with Sandra out on the site on Saturday. You know, I think she understood, and so I think that our preference is certainly not to hold up your close, but I don't think that you're going to have that issue. To do so, you'd probably, you know, if you have to put money in escrow to the estate, you'd still have to do that, but that's a relatively simple process. Ben is here nodding his head, you know, so I'm not asking him for legal advice here tonight because he's off the clock. I think that typically these kind of things are handled this way, and so I prefer to continue until August 2nd. Hopefully by then you've gotten in touch with your contractor and he's gotten a machine out there to pull the material back and get you the right material so you can get it reseeded. So, any other comments from the commission? Sandra, Matt, you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Thank you.
Carol or Ben, you good?
I'm good. I'm just gonna say I concur.
Right.
Maybe continuing makes it work.
Right. I'm a little confused about, Sandra, you would be the purchaser of the home, is that right?
That's correct.
How can a person who doesn't own a property request a COC?
It's
Um,
actually,
I work here. It's a place of business and his home. And Matt and I are just trying to get all of this taken care of. So Matt had asked me he said, do we need this to close? And I said, yeah. So I called.
so it was requested on behalf of Robert Churchman.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
So they're relatives of Robert Churchman.
Matt, yes.
Yes.
Sounds like Matt's been appointed personal representative.
Yes.
That's what Matt attested to, yes.
Yes,
Right.
I am.
So there's no problem with this arrangement.
No.
No. I think she's an interested party. So,
Yeah.
All right. Okay. It doesn't make sense to me, but
Just if the requirement is that the landowner co-sign, and so we have the verbal from anybody can be the applicant. It's often Collins Engineering that's the applicant for the septic systems on behalf of, and there's a co-sign for the landowner.
right,
So they're aware of what's going on their property.
right. So we don't need anything in writing from Matt around this.
no.
I don't think so. PR can sign as though it's him.
Okay, sounds good.
So make a motion to continue 863 Washington to August 2nd.
Carol second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol I.
Blondine, aye.
Thank you. Okay, so hopefully you get in touch with your contractor and he gets things started for you.
Thank you very
We-
much.
We
Yeah,
will
good
get.
luck with-
Thank
Good
you.
luck with the close too, yep. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So next up is Five Corners Sewer. This is a request for certificate of compliance for DEP number 1521560 and Easton number 1508.
This doesn't appear to be in your packet either. It is, now I'm pulling it up because I didn't have it either. My apologies.
Put in my packet.
Was it? Good.
It's
Okay.
it's at the bottom.
Okay, I opened the second one. Good, good. I'm glad you have it. Okay, this is the Five Corners sewer project. It's called Phase 2. It ran from along Foundry Street from about Roberts to the Five Corner intersection, included the side streets. The order of conditions was approved in September of 2018, and everybody remembers the construction of it because it interfered with everybody's traffic patterns. A certificate of compliance is requested. The work includes buffer zone work, but there were 2 stream crossings for the sewer line underneath the perennial Beaver Brook and Mulberry Brook. That included wetland restoration, damming up the stream, which was incredibly fun, as well as wetland restoration on either side of it. Brad Holmes did the supervision of it. He was on site during all of that work, as was I. It is stable. The wetland flow, the sides of the stream are very stable. It has the same flow patterns as before. We even got rid of some old silt. This isn't an ACEC, the Canoe River ACEC, and it is in a floodplain. The issues here were the pump station actually.
Just 1 second, Andy. So we have Scott Faria in
He's not our guy. Oh, okay. You're right. He's another project.
No, I don't know. Oh, is he? Oh, he's Goodspeed.
He's Goodspeed.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just making sure we.
No,
Sorry to interrupt. I just making sure.
Curran, who was the town's agent, and Greg Swan, who got the project recorded, got the decisions recorded. We do have staff reports from Brad Holmes, both from constructing the work back in 2019, 2020. He went out again then at the end of August of 2020 to ensure that everything was complete, and in June of this year went back out. All the recommendations he made in August were taken care of. It is fully, the wetland restoration area is fully stabilized with native plants, shrubs, as well as the native streams, the native seed mix. I was out there on Tuesday as well. Everything conformed. The couple interesting site modifications were that we actually put a stone riprap in Mulberry Brook. You knew about that, Ben? How cool. Oh, it's kind of like off the road, so I didn't know that you would actually see it. No, but it's a very good stone riprap that, and it's already been effective in stopping erosion into the brook. We
so
also
I was there on Saturday after all that rain, and it was working quite fine.
It's a long drainage area. Yeah. Did it bring a lot of crap with it, or is it just flow?
No, just flow.
Good. We also had to lower the water level of the new pond. No, old pond. Old pond is the one that looks older to me. The one closer to Pequannock. Lots and lots of groundwater over there, but we managed to do it without interfering with any wildlife that came and called me. So all the conditions were met, and it's fully constructed, and it's more than 100% cover. And the shrubbery the native shrubbery in the wetland is doing well. So this is a case where if you design a wetland well and you monitor it and you have professional supervision, they can succeed. And it has.
So those core
conditions.
So those core logs that are there, they'll stay in place?
Yes, those are called core logs, and they do stay in place. Because there is an elevation change. They actually create the stream bank. And they
you can actually see the difference. That stream bank, especially off a new pond, used to just spread right out when there was a lot of water. Now it's well defined, going down the first 50 feet or so. So it's very helpful. So it was working as designed.
Andrew, did you say more than 100% coverage?
No, I said it does have 100% coverage.
Okay.
But it's 100% coverage of herbaceous, plus it has all the shrubbery that was proposed is healthy at the moment. So the perpetual conditions are no road salts, only using calcium chlorides, snow disposal in the upland area, no dumping in the wetlands, and stormwater maintenance.
Would that be no road salts on Foundry Street?
Yeah,
That's a tough one.
It is a tough, well, you can use calcium chloride, and what the town often uses is a brine. And I think that it would qualify as being okay. They put it down early, they put down a whole lot less than the old traditional practices. Good
Honestly,
point, though.
I don't love being involved in what I think is sort of the DPW's public safety decision as to what products they should use to treat the road.
This was in the original order as a perpetual condition, and they reviewed my conditions before my staff report before I posted it. We do work as a team.
Fair enough.
Any questions? Okay, so seeing none, I make a motion to issue certificate of compliance for Five Corner Sewer Project, Phase 2, Easton, number 1508, perpetual conditions as noted in the staff report.
Lundin, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Lundin, aye.
Okay, great. So normally we talk about breaking now for a few minutes. Does anybody need that? I think we've got about half an hour left, maybe. So I'll let you guys decide. I'm okay to keep on going, but if you need 5 minutes.
I'm okay to keep going too.
Yeah, I need a 2-minute break.
We have Scott Faria here for the last project, and then it becomes everybody's time. Would you be willing to hear the one minor mod?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so Andrea, so you want to bring up Scott, and then we'll.
Did.
Okay.
I don't know if Scott is prepared to speak to this, but there is a minor mod plan for lot 5 on Goodspeed Estates.
Okay. You want me to try and bring it up? Scott, do you want me to bring it up, or do you want?
If you could, please, Mr. Chairman.
I'll try.
It is. It's hard to find. It's Easton number 1544.
Okay, I will find it.
So the Goodspeed Estates is a 8-lot subdivision. This is one of the lots. When the subdivision was approved in 2019, no, when it was approved in 2017, there was a conceptual house lot, and a condition was placed that if there was any change in the pervious footprint, that it had to come back for review and approval of some level. That's been, just because this might be my last meeting, that's a really important thing to include, because they all change. It's a conceptual footprint to say that it fits on the lot.
Right.
So there you go, Scott.
All right. Thank you, Andrea. Mr. Chairman, board members, Scott Faria, Homegrown Engineering for Ekstrom Home Design. As Andrea said, we're here for Lot 5 Goodspeed. We had, back in your 2017 approval, a house approved, limit of work area driveway. Since then, the lot has been sold. There's a family ready to get started on construction. So we have a solid house plan now, a solid footprint, and that's the plan that we have before you. So we've maintained the exact same limit of work area that was approved, and we've actually reduced the total impervious area on the lot by about 8%, a little over 270 square feet in a reduction. So it's a little bit bigger house, smaller on the deck, smaller on the driveways. Everything else got smaller. So in the end, it ends up being an 8% decrease, Mr. Chairman.
So Andrea, I can't find it, but.
I apologize. I'm so accustomed to your assistance that I don't have it, and I have to open up my Permitize to do it. You could lose me.
Oh well.
Going going through I'm going through right now the file. I think it was emailed to me. And I can share the screen if you like.
Give me 1 second.
It's 1544.
Yeah, no, I think I might have.
Okay, I got it. It's 20. It's called. It's an odd name. I'm going to share my screen because we only live once.
Go for it.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. I want to stay at this high zoom level. I'm going to go out a little bit. It's at the end of Goodspeed Estates. And the reason I came out is because the green line is the wetland line, but there's a wetland replication at the toe of the slope that is actually working pretty well at the moment. There you go. There's a wetland replication area that got constructed in Easton, file number 1544. Okay, Scott, where do you want me to go? There's the picture. Do you want me to show that or the table?
No, I think that's fine.
Okay.
The commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
There's some pervious pavement. That's a pretty cool thing to talk about.
There's that little square area that's kind of shaded, just to get a little bit of a decrease. We came up with some permeable pavers in that area, just to get the square footage down. So that helped. It's everything's so close out there, as Andrea said. A deck makes a big difference. A 2-foot addition on the house ends up being 100 square feet, and all of a sudden it puts you over. So that little permeable paving area got us well under the previously approved square footage and into a decrease. So that's what we were looking for. So we got that with that permeable paving area.
And that permeable, I turned the screen over to show the table. Proposed driveway is listed twice because the very last line is proposed pervious driveway. So that's actually a negative
Right.
63, and that's how you get that's how you get to a total of an 8% decrease.
That's how the math works. Yep.
Just as an exercise here, so it's about a 75 square foot increase in total area, just because 363 of it is now pervious. It drops it down to 3168. Is that about right?
Sure. Agreed. Yes.
It goes up to about 30, 35, 31. So you're at about 70, 86 square feet different, just in total surface area. But you get below it. You get below it because of the pervious. So I'm okay with the small change here. So any questions from the commission?
None from me.
You're on mute, Carol. Just if you're saying something.
Yeah, my dog was sounding off. Now I lost my train of thought. The permeable pavers, are the construction details on the plan?
It is. Let me go over there. It's also not a high traffic area.
Right.
There it is.
Right, and then,
Can you see it?
yes, thank you. So my question is, one of the permeable paver sellers that I know of, they offer a custom design on some projects. So one thing that they include is a recommendation to have or not have. It's not necessary to have something like a perforated pipe inside there. So just wondering what, what vendor you would use, what their recommendations are for their product.
On this one, we don't have any kind of a perforated pipe or any kind of drainage proposed. It's, as we said, it's kind of a small area. It slopes off, it slopes off pretty well. So we don't feel like we'll have any drainage issues. So there's really no reason in this situation to have any kind of an under drain for this relatively small driveway area. I think in bigger ones that we've done, we've had sub drains designed just to help to move the water. But in this case, where it's basically a 20 by 20 square, it's just not that big of an area where it would call for any kind of a subsurface drainage.
Right. Thank you. And then what about a maintenance plan? If these aren't maintained properly, the fill sand that goes in comes out, and that ruins the integrity of the surface.
Yeah, we didn't specify any kind of a maintenance plan to go with it. We would certainly be willing to submit one to go along with the approval if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be terrific.
Okay.
And I think it's part of the vendor that I know. You have to prove that you've maintained it properly in order to make a warranty claim on it.
Exactly.
So they have very specific instructions for maintenance.
They do.
I think it is stated that it's installed according to manufacturer's specifications.
Right.
So I think that maybe we just expand that to be installed and maintained in accordance with manufacturer's specification.
Sounds perfect.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Any public comment on minor mod for Lot 5, Goodspeed Estates?
Hold on. Take a look at that plan again.
Oh, can you not see it?
Correct.
Okay. Sure.
Bingo. Just saying, what is the fill between the pavers, please? Scott?
Well, again, we don't have it. It's typically a sand processed gravel type mix. Yeah, we don't have it shown on that detail.
Right, but it will be installed according to the manufacturer.
Right, it goes back to the manufacturer specs, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I make a motion to accept the minor modification to Lot 5, Goodspeed Estates, noting that in addition to installation according to manufacturer's specifications, it should also be maintained according to manufacturer's specification.
Lundin second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, aye.
Lundin aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Good night. Thank you, Andrea.
Make a motion to recess for 5 minutes. We will return at 8:19. Please turn off your video and camera. And we'll see you at 8:19.
Right. Thank you.
I need a second on that, and then we'll vote. Hang on.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, aye.
You're on mute, Carol. Okay, so we'll have Carol vote when she comes back.
Okay.
See you at 8:19. Okay, so it being 8:19, we'll bring the hearing, the meeting back to order. Next up is an item, Community Preservation Committee update. I'd like to have Carol give us an update after she gets to meet with the CPC from time to time. Any update for us? It's going to be very boring, isn't it?
It is. There's last time we discussed 2 or 3 matters that seemed to have no bearing on the commission, and the other was executive session.
Excellent. So, is there there's been some talk, I think, to sort of restructure and maybe refocus the commission, the Community Preservation Commission Committee in a sort of more structured way. Is that something I took away from that, or is that not from a recent meeting, but just in the last year or so?
Right. You're saying the committee itself, or the way it goes about accepting applications?
The way it goes about accepting applications. Yeah.
Right. There is a new form that you'll get, information packet that you'll get when you want to submit an application. So it is a bit improved.
Right. So you think it'll be helpful?
Sure. I think it will benefit many kinds of applicants.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I think that's what I was sort of getting to. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks for asking.
Next up is meeting minutes. I understood there were some potential edits, but I didn't see any edits. There are a number of things that I wanted to modify or clarify in a couple of these. I don't know if anybody else had a chance to read these.
I did not.
Ben?
I skimmed them, but not with great detail.
Well, did you notice that you were referred to as John Thomas on one of them?
I missed that. Not a bad name.
It's a good name.
That got fixed.
Corrected, Mr. Chairman, with your second.
What's that?
That was corrected with the second info meeting.
Yeah, I was very busy all afternoon, so I didn't see the second packet. I mean, I can open up the second packet. I'm really just making light of it. Please don't take it as something. I was really poking fun at Ben more than anything else. Just give me 1 second. I mean, I'd like to get these cleared off of our docket if we can, so give me 1 second. Okay, so June 7th, there was, yeah, I'll leave that one as is. So, can someone clarify something for me? This is June 7th, and maybe you guys can say whether this was stated or not in the hearing. It may be factual, I just don't know that it was actually stated in the hearing. This is under 560 Foundry Street, the top of page 2 on June 7th. Middle of the paragraph, it says, testing revealed there were no significant amounts of asbestos on site. Was that something that was discussed at the hearing?
I don't remember them saying that.
Yes.
Even specifically asbestos.
I don't recall.
I believe it was part of the overview that Brian was giving us.
Okay.
So this wasn't last meeting. This was, yeah.
It was 2 meetings ago, right?
Yeah.
So down under the trail project, there's a reference to the pedestrian crossing should be at the cross/foundry signal. I think we mean cross street, but we probably just label it Aquanic/Foundry signal. So if we could make that change.
Agreed.
Just for clarification, and I think at the top of page 5, I had made a note to make a change to the previous minutes, and I referred to a vote on 16 Gawain Road. It's written down here as Gawain Road. It should be Gawain, Gawaine. So if we can make that change as well. And the last question that I had was the BU deer study. Andrea, maybe this is just something that it wasn't evident to me in all of our discussions. Were the people from Boston University, were they students or were they staff or a mix of both, or were they graduate students? What was this story?
It was both. There's two graduate students is being led by a professor from BU as well as a professor from Texas A&M.
Okay, so he met with the two students, or at least one of the students?
Yeah, the actual meeting was, the actual Zoom was with the graduate students.
Okay, I think that was just something, I think you guys probably knew and it didn't come out. So just the two changes in the street names is all the questions I have. Anybody else?
Yes, to circle a bit back about the asbestos question. I think you asked Rory if any of us recall if Brian said that there was none found, but it's possible it's also some was found, but it was below reportable thresholds. If that applies to asbestos.
So it's so that what's listed here is probably consistent with what you just described. So it doesn't say none was found. It says no significant amount of asbestos on site.
Right.
If I could also add another clarification, on page 6, the motion for 36 School Street, the motion reads, made a motion to allow DPW to use a liquid smoke to pipe the culvert. What the issue here is that a certificate of compliance is being requested by a private landowner. The requirement to maintain that storm drain was put on the landowner, and DPW asked, and the board concurred at the meeting of June 7th, to allow the landowner to pay for a machine, a liquid smoke detector that DPW would then use. But I was a little, unless you disagree, I don't believe you intended to give the applicant a free pass here. I think, yes, I believe he was to pay for the machine.
Agreed.
I agree. The motion, I think, was to allow the landowner to purchase to pay for the liquid smoke. I think that was what, and allow it to be used by DPW. So
That was my understanding as well.
So let's just clarify that. Caulfield's made a motion to allow the landowner to pay for and DPW to use liquid smoke on the Clark culvert. Okay? Tish, are we good on that?
I was just writing it down. Allow landowner to pay for and DPW to use liquid smoke.
Yep.
Liquid smoke machine to find the discharge of the pipe, to find the outlet of the pipe.
That's, I think we're okay there because it's in the discussion above that, what it's being used about, so.
None of this is ringing a bell to me, so my sense is that I did not attend that meeting.
You did.
I did. And I really can't count on my memory, can I?
Welcome to my world.
Oh, I think you may have been in and out at one point. I'm not positive, but I think.
Well, she voted on this one, so.
Okay.
It's both of us then.
Yeah, I think you're correct, though. She did drop out for a short period of time.
I think that was the 23rd and she left. actually.
Okay, so, Caulfield's made a motion to allow the landowner to pay for and DPW to use liquid smoke machine, to, on the public culvert for purposes of determining discharge location for maintenance purposes. How's that, Andrea?
Sure. As long as the applicant has to pay for it.
Yeah, so that's been made clear. Tish, are we good on that?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind just going over that one more time with me, after the liquid smoke machine.
Liquid smoke machine on the pipe culvert for the purposes of determining discharge location for maintenance. So for the purposes of determining discharge location for maintenance. Got it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have allow landowner to pay for and DPW use liquid smoke machine on the pipe culvert for the purpose of locating discharge for maintenance.
Yep. Okay, so with the two changes to the street names plus the change to the motion on 36 Center Street, make a motion to accept the meeting minutes for June 7th with noted changes.
Lundin, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Lundin, aye.
So let me just see about the next one here, since I have two changes. One I assume was corrected already. I can't keep track of what page I'm on. Okay, so we made the change to Benjamin Carroll, and there's a motion to the new signature delegation.
On page 4.
Yeah, and so there's been a change to that sentence, which is fine. Then the motion, it says, Caulfield's made a motion to authorize Ms. Langhauser or her successor signature authority for the, and then there's a blank. I think it's for decisions issued at hearings. For decisions issued at Concom Commission hearings. Decisions issued at Commission hearings.
Would it be limited to hearings?
I was just thinking that as I said it. Decisions issued at commission proceedings. Are we good on that, Tish?
The motion to authorize Ms. Langhauser or her successor signature authority for the decisions issued at conservation proceedings.
Conservation Commission proceedings. Perfect. So, make a motion to accept the meetings for June 23rd with the two changes. Or with one-to-one change. One with everything, so.
Second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Sorry, you mean the minutes, not the minutes. Sorry, Lundin, aye.
Sorry, what was the clarification from?
something in the motion that tripped a little, kind of misspoken, wondered if you had misspoken with a word that began with the letter M.
Yeah, I think you said meeting instead of minutes.
Right, yep. So motion to accept the,
Motion to accept, so let me amend my motion to accept the minutes for June 23rd as amended.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Paul Fells, aye.
Carol, aye.
Lundin, aye.
Okay, so typically the first meeting after the appointments occur, first meeting of July usually, we go through reorganization of the commission and elect the chair and vice chair as well as any committee appointments as well as any associate member. So I know we don't have a full commission here tonight, but unless there's a proposal to make any changes to the chair and vice chair, I propose to sort of move forward since we do have a quorum. I did speak to Mike and Charlie today, and I don't think there's any indication Mike would like to remain vice chair. I would like to remain, chairman. So unless there's question or proposal to change those, I'm open to those.
Sounds great, thank you.
So why don't we have a motion to, be great if someone else could make the motion. A motion for the chair. So I need someone to make a motion to appoint Rory Culpers as the chair.
Motion to appoint Rory Culpers as the chair.
Lundin, second.
Roll call vote, Culpers, aye.
Carol, aye.
Lundin, aye.
Motion to appoint Mike Spadia as vice chair.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Culpers, aye.
Carol, aye.
Lundin, aye.
Carol, are you still willing to be the CPC representative?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else interested?
Are we supposed to have more than one?
No, we only have one.
But I'm more than happy to have Carol have that role. Assuming she's willing to continue to do it.
She did indicate her willingness, so I don't we could appoint someone else if somebody is not here. That was not true. I enjoy the time I spend on other committees too. So make a motion to appoint Carol Lundin as our CPC representative.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Culpers, aye.
Carol, aye.
Lundin, aye.
And there are currently 3 associate members. I did reach out a couple weeks ago to make sure that everyone was still interested, and I did hear back if anyone was not interested. I did actually get an affirmation from that Chase. I appreciate the work that these associate members do tremendously. We're talking about Jonathan Chase, who does all the work with Boy Scouts and as well as all the other trail work that gets done out there, as well as Chris Patrick and all the trail work that he does, especially with the Mountain Bike Association. And now he's got that every Wednesday trail work all summer long. It's an absolute amazing amount of work that he's doing out there. So we couldn't actually do that work without having associate members out there. So we really rely upon them to do this. And also Stefan Katina, former chair, who is also involved in a lot of the trail work, especially on the Flagler Pond. So I'd like to reappoint the associate members, Jonathan Chase, Christopher Patrick, and Stefan Katina.
Is that a motion?
It is a motion.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Culpers, aye.
Carol, aye.
Lundin, aye.
Any other commission position issues we want to discuss? Any questions? Okay. That's it for me. Any other business that someone needs to raise?
Nothing for me.
Just as Andrea alluded to, this is potentially her last meeting with us. This is actually her first meeting as a official member of the town of Easton, employee of the Easton.
Hired temporary employee.
Exactly, hired temporary employee. Andrea, I continue to be amazed by your incredible preparation and support of us. And you and I have had many conversations over the years, and they've been incredibly valuable to me. I am astounded by your just continued commitment and preparation for us. And I know it makes a huge difference to the work that we do, and I am incredibly thankful for it. And so I continue to thank you every single time I see you now, especially since you're not an employee. So I do appreciate it. And so you can call me at any time.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's easier for you to transition more smoothly. I'm happy to do it. You're going to be in great hands, though.
Yeah, I agree. And so hopefully by next meeting, we'll be introduced to our new agent, and we'll start down that road. And I know that Andrea will be helpful in her transition as well. But as I said, she comes with a wealth of experience as well, so it won't be a tremendous challenge. Easton bylaws are different than other towns, so it'll take some time to get used to that. But I'm sure that they will do well for sure. So I will take one more motion for this evening, if you would like.
Before that, thank you, Andrea, for your service to the state and the town.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
I already heard from you, Ben. Let's just move on.
Motion to adjourn.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, aye.
Lundin, aye.
Thank you all.
Good night. Goodbye.
Night.
Bye bye.